Diary of August Drew, March 22nd. I like to think of myself as someone who isn't prone to befuddlement. Solving problems is something that comes naturally to me. So whenever something occurs that would confuse most, it takes no grand amount of time for me to arrive at the logical conclusion. I am not easy to surprise, and I must confess, I quite like that. So, you can imagine my distress when I cannot figure out for the life of me why I'm seeing more and more news outlets spreading rumors of a virus creating the walking dead. I am not ignorant to how corrupt modern journalism can be, nor blind to its effects, but even this seems like a stretch for them. Such an idea is so unfeasible that even the popular term zombie has become increasingly seen as juvenile and blasé. I would hypothesize this to be an homage to the War of the Worlds broadcast by Orson Welles, if not for how predictable and cliched this is, which only makes its current wide reach all the more perplexing. March 26th. I have continued ignoring all talks about this zombie virus on the news until now, when I witnessed the strangest thing during my usual routine of grocery shopping. As soon as I arrived at the store, there was an unseemly crowd of people heading both inside and outside of the store, seemingly in a panic. What's more, there was an undeniable absence of many, no, most of the items from the usual shelves. Have so many been buying into this poor joke that they're ready to declare Armageddon already? I have talked to several of my relatives about this, and even some of them are starting to believe it as well. I have no idea where all of this is going right now, but I'm not sure that I like it. April 2nd. I cannot deny what I've been seeing and hearing anymore. The descriptions and accounts of the victims, the footage being shown of the infected. These are zombies in every sense of the word. None of my relatives can bring themselves to deny it either. Not even the most skeptical of them. The only logical answer left is to prepare ourselves. I will not dare go near a firearms store, knowing the kind of chaos that is surely brewing near. I will simply have to hope that my own personal defense pistol is enough already. My God, it really is happening. April 10th. I'm constantly restless knowing what's out there. Part of it is my fault, of course. But how can anyone resist the temptation to keep the news channels on, learning everything happening while they still can? It may not bring any relief, no. But even the worst news is a reminder that I'm still alive, and better off than some others. I keep hoping that it will all be over eventually, and yet the cynic within me realizes that this may not be so for a very long time, if ever. April 19th. I have killed one. With my own pistol, I have killed one of these zombies myself. I still remember its terrifying moan, just silent enough that I almost didn't hear it until my wired mental state forced me to turn around. I was quick on the draw, yet did my best to steady my trembling hands, making sure that I would make the shot count. Just as pop culture predicted, aiming for the head dropped it instantly. I am not one to believe most or even some of what I see in movies and television, but in a world gone mad, sometimes the silliest answer is the most logical of them all. Watching its body crumble to the ground brought a prodigious amount of relief, and dare I say, even satisfaction. I may still be trapped at home right now, but at least I can count confidence amongst my arsenal. When they come again, I will be ready, and I must be, for the end of the world is coming. April 20th. It's over. Our government officials have announced the end of the state of emergency this afternoon. The last zombie has been slain.
I was in my apartment. I was working on some homework. I was, as I do every night. And I just sort of had, a news site open just in the background. And I eventually saw a breaking news ticker that said, President announces stay at home order. And I was like, well, that's weird. What's going on? I read more about it, and I saw news reports of strange looking people who looked very sickly and were moving slowly and making weird noises. And I looked outside my window and I saw, well, I don't know what I saw, really. I saw people scared and not sure what to do, and I didn't know what was happening, but I guess now I realize those were the zombies.
I was in my office at the time. I work at a small software company. We make video editing software, and basically I was listening to internet radio and finishing up the project I was working on when it gets interrupted and I find out that there is a civic disturbance and everyone should go home. Yeah, civic disturbance was not even like a few miles down in a larger town of Springfield, and so I didn't know anything at the time. Nobody did. I got in my car, got home, and then just waited. Well, then a few hours later I realized that I didn't have much in my home, so I ran on down to an Indian grocery store down the road, picked up a whole bunch of rice, and if I knew that that's what I would be eating for the next few weeks, I probably should have grabbed a little bit more meat. Got home, closed the door, and sent my boss an email asking if I should go to the office tomorrow. Then from then on, for the entire next month, it was working from home and just being away from the outside world, mostly. Just observing it through the window once in a while when I'm not staring at a screen doing work.
On my days off, I usually don't hear from the officers, but there was some stuff going on, and I guess it reached the point where they needed to give me a call at home and let me know that there was some strange activity that they needed to let me know about. And at first, they weren't quite sure what it was, and I questioned them, and they were getting sort of some mixed reactions as to what was going on out there in the community. Some people thought that maybe it was being exaggerated a little bit, and others really felt that they had seen something that was just a supernatural type of situation. And so they were concerned and gave me a call on my day off at home.
Yeah, I think I was exercising at my health club on the treadmill watching TV, and I wasn't really paying attention, but the guy next to me said something about, hey, look at that, can you believe that? And I can't believe he fell for it, but he thought it was real, so it was just kind of funny. I just remember laughing about it.
It was originally relayed to me through one of the security guards, but I later had to confirm it on the internet with most of my sources.
I was at my boyfriend's apartment. I was proofreading stuff for my work. I edit the teleprompter stuff at a local news station. I actually thought it was a prank the first time I heard, because it seemed like one of the gag stories my coworkers would sometimes sneak into my workload.
When I first heard about the zombies, I was at the grocery store, just picking up a few things, and I saw this family from out of town with like 2 or 3 shopping carts full of just some really random items. There was a lot of beans, rice, they had a ton of toilet paper, and one cart was just full of bleach. And I wasn't quite sure what was going on, so I, walked over and tapped the mom on the shoulder. She jumped super high, like was very nervous. It freaked her out. And I was like, what are you doing? And she told me that there had been reports of zombies in her town.
I was in my shop, doing my job, and on comes the news. Apparently the dead came back. Go figure.
Honestly, at first I was in a bit of shock and disbelief. Like, I'd been planning a few days prior, like, yeah, there are zombies now, but nothing ever prepares you for when it's actually happening, Like, it's something I'd always waited for. Like, the movies made it look great, but it just kind of fell flat.
What came to your mind when you imagined a zombie prior to this event?
Something out of D&D, like Shaggy, like rambling mindlessly.
Before this, probably like those old horror flicks. My family's way big on movies, so I saw a lot as a kid.
Well, I mean, we've all seen, Dawn of the Dead and movies like that. I was just picturing a rotting, green or gray corpse, I'm gonna eat your brains and all that dumb stuff. It never really occurred to me that could even be possible.
I suppose what came to my mind was just those cliche horror movie zombies where they come at you screaming brains. Didn't really imagine anything quite like this.
Prior to this, I always thought zombies were like green or gray monsters stumbling around like in the Thriller video or that plant eating game. And I never imagined like what a real life zombie would look like.
You always see them in the movies. You see a zombie and they're usually someone that looks, old and has cuts on their face, and they sort of walk with their arms out and make funny noises, and that's about it. And, they end up getting killed, and in the end everyone's fine and the movie's over. And so that's sort of what the impression of a zombie is, but this is very different.
I've never thought about zombies once in my life prior to this event. I mean, you see them on TV. They're little kids, they're fake. They're little kids things. They're not real, so I didn't worry about them. I didn't think about them. They're still little kids things that aren't real. I know that comes as a shock to some people.
An old classic from Hanna-Barbera, the shambling soldiers from the damn lagoon.
It is a thing of fiction. Like, dead coming back. I'm a good Christian boy. We don't believe in that kind of stuff.
I mean, the closest thing to that would be some druggie in the throat freezing in the corner so you can get another hit. At least, that's what I associated way back when I used to live in Petrozavodsk. But apparently the movie kind decided to come to real life as well for a moment.
Look, the physics of zombies are just that the zombies that you see in the movies, they just don't make any sense. A body that has rotted that amount does not have the stability required to walk on two legs. So I knew that a zombie couldn't exist in real life. I mean, I'm a physics student, of course I knew that. It's just not possible. But I guess the real life zombies are a little bit different. They aren't as rotted. They're just sort of sickly. They didn't seem to be asking to eat brains or anything. They didn't really seem to be talking much at all. Just kind of walking and with a sort of like dead, weird expression on their face. And yeah, I guess the real life version was not what I expected.
I'm getting these messages that this may be zombies, and what are you talking about? Why are you calling me at home? And I'm thinking it's some sort of joke, because why would we ever have zombies around? I mean, that's just what you see on TV, and it just wasn't. It wasn't a joke.
How did you see yourself surviving a world where zombies walk the earth?
I really didn't, to be honest.
Didn't really plan for it. No one did, or at least so we thought.
Kicking, screaming, and shooting. I'd been planning to get a gun at some point. Figured if they're gonna be zombies, might as well get one now.
I don't think I'd have it in me to fight back, especially if I knew the person before they became, one of the living dead.
Never gave it much thought. Honestly, like I said, it's just a bunch of fiction. Never gonna happen. But here we are.
I suppose it would be just like any other horror movie cliche. Just find enough food, water to survive the day and see what happens the next day.
My first concern was for my family. I hate to say it, but I really, I did think immediately about my job as an officer, but then it went back down to just survival. And so I thought, where would we be safe? What do we do? And so it was really, having the survival tactics that I do in my position was sort of taking my kids and my husband and finding a quiet place to go out in the woods where we couldn't be found, but we could protect ourselves. And that's sort of how I saw surviving, was surviving alone as a family. I'm a little embarrassed to admit that, but when it comes down to it, we all come back to looking out for ourselves, I think, in one way or another.
I didn't see myself surviving a world. I thought I was a goner for sure. The only hope that I had was making sure that I never ever left my apartment. Just, stayed inside and hoped that I would make it through. When you think of the kind of person who defend themselves during a zombie apocalypse, a PhD student in physics is not exactly the first thing to pop into your head.
I panicked. I didn't know what to think.
For me, it was just hide in a house with all that taste your ice for a whole month and, hope that I don't die. And apparently for a lot of people, they thought the same. And then there were some that thought the complete opposite.
It was never something I thought of before now, because it seemed so completely ridiculous that this could even be something that would affect my daily life. Like, we have so much technology now and so many supports in our infrastructure, that something this crazy and bizarre would just never have happened. So I never really pictured it. It never crossed my mind.
If it turned out to be real, did you see yourself at all surviving a world where zombies walk the earth?
I have no fear of zombies. I mean, I don't worry about Santa Claus either, so it's not a problem for me.
The only thing I could really do was just listen to the safety protocols and hope for the best.
I actually have a window that shows me a local highway that was leading to Springfield, and I've seen a lot of pickup trucks go down that route. You'd think the police would close it off or anything, but nah, cars going back and forth.
What went through your mind when you first heard that the dead had risen and zombies are now a part of reality?
Oh, I couldn't believe it. It just seemed, it was unrealistic to me. I mean, who would ever have thought something like that would happen? I just don't, still to this day, really fathom or appreciate the situation that we're in. It does not make sense. It's a whole new phenomenon and normal that we're trying to adjust to and figure out how we're gonna deal with it and what's the best way to deal with it.
What is that? He sees me. He's coming.
It was scary. It was a mix of emotions. I'm torn between protecting everyone, protecting my family, protecting myself, and trying to be a leader through all of that. And it just was a lot. It's a lot. The whole thing's a lot.
First things first, everything's gonna change. How do you prepare for that? And how do you prepare for that? And I couldn't even find myself asking myself that question. All I did was board up and hope for the best.
Mostly disbelief. Again, I did think it was a prank, but the stories kept piling up, and eventually I caught on that it was...
I wondered if it was all a big prank. I mean, zombies walking the streets, that's not something you hear every day.
I guess I didn't really know what to think. Like I said before, I kind of assumed zombies were impossible. But what I saw couldn't be argued with, so I guess I just sort of panicked and just sort of didn't know what to think. All I could do was just hope and pray that things would end up okay.
I think I laughed. I laughed for what felt like ages. And then I started crying. Not quite sure why.
I checked the calendar to see if it was April 1st, and it wasn't. I then was wondering who these people were, who these crazy people were. I wondered why I wasn't in on the joke. It just was ridiculous. But, there's all, people believe things you know, especially if there's money to be made off of it, this protective clothing, protective equipment people are selling, they're pushing all this stuff to protect against the zombies. Come on, you think politicians don't own stock in the companies that make that stuff?
When I first heard that zombies were part of reality and like gonna affect our lives, like immediately I was a little bit shook by it. That was so out of the norm, so it kind of freaked me out. And then the more I started thinking about it, the more I realized like how completely ridiculous that whole thing sounded.
Remember back in Kuwait, Blackstone, the security company that owned stock in the company? Well, that company had billions of dollars of contracts to provide security in Kuwait. Why do you think they needed the security? So they could make money off of it. It's the same thing going on right now. They're just being a little more clever about it.
That was told us 2-3 days after I heard about the civic disturbance news. So I think it didn't even register for me for a few more days. It just sounded like a joke. And then in the next few weeks, I heard that the same thing happened in my hometown back in Russia. That's what truly hit me hard. And by then, I found out that not only it was real, but apparently I made the best choice possible at the time.
What did you do to prepare yourself for what was coming? Did you stay at home with the supplies you had, or did you risk going out to collect provisions first?
Oh, I didn't risk anything at all. I didn't know what I was getting into.
Oh, first of all, I had to get my family to safety, because family's real important. But second of all, I had to get my gun. Can never be too safe out there.
Oh, I went out to collect provisions. I'm certainly not scared of things. I'll go out, and I think I'm pretty smart and cunning and can make my way around okay. It was important to have what we needed, especially for the kids, and so went out, grabbed provisions, did it safely, tried to help neighbors as much as I could, but really just trying to see what I could find out while I was out there with what was going on in the community, but then also seeing what I could find for my family and stocking up as much as I could.
I suppose I stockpiled a bit more than usual, but I noticed the government was doing a decent job at actually keeping the infection under control. So, I just went about my life as usual.
Listen, everyone stocks up some, but I knew if the storm was going to go out for a while, I needed more. So, I did my duty as the head of the household. I went out, I got us more supplies, one way or another.
Oh, I definitely would never have risked trying to collect more provisions. That would not have ended well for me. I just stayed home and hoped for the best. Maybe, I still got enough supplies right now. Hopefully I won't run out anytime soon. But I really don't think if I had to leave my apartment to get more supplies, I would make it back.
First thing I did was I went to the gun shop. I got a rifle that was frankly too big. Some like this big, the bullet. I could barely move the damn thing once I actually got it out the store, let alone shoot it straight. After that, I picked up I think it was a 10 gauge shotgun. Horrible round, and I think it was a 22 revolver. I don't know where the hell I got that. I may have actually picked it up off the ground, frankly.
As I said, I just grabbed a bunch of bags of rice and hoped that they lasted me. And, I mean, they did. Because a few weeks later, I actually found out that that's it. That's all it was. That's all that it took. I mean, again, as I said, there were a lot of other things. There were other people who were just as paranoid as I was. Some of my coworkers actually went out the same day as it was happening, and they reported back that there was nothing. Like, the world kept going the way it did. Which is weird.
At first, I was, really nervous that all of these people that were going crazy for this were going to buy all of the things that I needed. So I was going to make sure that I was taken care of and that I had all the stuff I wanted. So I went out and got, my favorite things, like the necessities, and stocked up on some extra stuff too, in case somebody who wasn't prepared or was needing to be extra prepared, like some doomsday prepper people, if they needed things, then maybe I could help myself out a little extra with that too, and make an extra buck selling some supplies.
I just laughed at people. What's there to prepare for?
We're a highly evolved society who goes out of their way to ensure that our dead are properly buried. Like, there's just no way that this could be real. Like, it's ridiculous to think that something crawled out of a 6-foot deep hole in a box and then was just like stumbling around like everything is like, this is it now. Here I am. I'm alive again. So, sort of.
I mean, yeah, there's a little virus that's out there that's, people get sick. There's Ebola, there's the bird flu, there's the pig flu, swine flu, there's this flu, there's that flu, there's another flu. And, I do believe maybe it makes people behave a little strangely. Probably gets into their meninges in their brain. And, there's a lot of things like that. You got meningitis, you have different diseases and viruses that can get into somebody's brain and make them act a little differently. I think that may be the case. But, as long as I was being safe, I wash my hands, I stay away from these crazy people. There's nothing to worry about. Just don't get sick. I mean, I'm more worried about, a heart attack or getting cancer than I am getting this disease. It's, and what's the worst thing that happens to me? I get it, I act a little weird for a couple of weeks, and then I'm fine.
We had plenty of stuff stocked up. My folks taught me pretty early on to keep extra canned food in case of emergencies, so we probably could have survived a few months, just off of what we had, me and my boyfriend.
So what went through your mind when you heard that the threat had already been quelled?
I was like, what threat got quelled to begin with? Like, zombies never came near me. I was never exposed to it. Nobody I knew had seen a zombie. Like, nobody in my daily life had. So I was like, what threat got quelled?
That's it? When you see these zombie movies or any other sort of horrible pandemic like this, usually there's a lot more mass destruction. I suppose I was just shocked that it had ended all so quickly.
I was skeptical. Seemed like too much of a flash in the pan, but the news was all saying it was over, and sometimes you just gotta listen.
I was surprised, and I think I should have been happy, but I didn't. As I said earlier, I found out that this was happening in my hometown, and that it wasn't over then. Like, yeah, it was great to hear it stop here, but my family was still in danger. Things weren't already, they were pretty bad already. My father had tuberculosis, and, having another thing happen, last thing you want, whenever a disease eats you from the inside, that's bad enough. Knowing that your father can also get literally eaten doesn't help as well.
Where was your family exactly?
Well, as I mentioned before, my hometown of Petrozavodsk, it was like, they live in an apartment in a small 2-story house. I mean, now that I found out, they've gotten away with just, a scare. I mean, it was terrifying at the time to know that I was here. Yeah, there was still this outbreak happening, but they were there and I couldn't help them or anything. Sick dad and the rest of the family, just mother, sister.
You, the first week or two, go through a point of not believing it, and then it finally settles in, and at that point you just sort of learn to adapt and deal with it, and you make changes in your life, and then all of a sudden, after a month of going through all of those emotions, to find out that it's gone and that there's nothing, and you're sort of standing there after all the changes that you've made and the way that you've reacted to the situation, it's a little embarrassing. It's sort of tough to go back to the role that I was in, with the way that I reacted, but I think everyone learned a lot from it, and I think that we can all pick up again and move forward with a different perspective on things.
Like I said, we're set up for this. We have the infrastructure that supports it. We're smart people with a ton of technology. This wasn't the big deal that everybody was making it out to be.
Why do you suspect that the state of emergency ended so fast?
Because I think they were worried about getting found out by guys like me. I work in the law. I know how to do research. I know what's legal. I know what's not legal. I can cut through BS very quickly. And I think that other folks like myself were catching on to what's going on, and they were very worried about, being brought to justice, found out, and, possibly prosecuted for criminal behavior.
Everything was able to be put away so quickly because it was such a small, if it was an issue, it was like the smallest issue to begin with.
They realized the jig was up, so to speak, and they couldn't keep doing it, so they were smart enough at least to stop before they got caught and everybody knew about it. I mean, they've been caught, but they're keeping it under wraps.
I honestly don't know. I don't know what makes zombies tick, but thank goodness that it happened so quickly.
You gotta give the military a lot of credit. We put a lot of dollars into them. Bullets and bombs, they paved the way.
Hard work and determination of the people on the front line, I think.
People like me, people who went and tried to do something at least, because nothing ever comes from someone just sitting on their ass and hoping someone else will save the day, right?
I suppose it would be a combination of government intervention as well as people just doing their part to make sure that the infection didn't really get beyond a couple of infected people.
I guess everyone in this world has their strengths. The people used to fighting on the front lines, police, military, and any other person with experience using firearms, they were able to hold up the defenses. Meanwhile, we had brilliant minds working behind the scenes trying to find a cure, economists planning how to recover from the inevitable economic fallout. I guess everyone just playing to their strengths, working together, and listening to what experts told them. I guess that was what allowed us to make it through this.
Well, I think that we knew that we couldn't survive with them in our world, and everyone wanted to survive, and so it was a matter of thinking of the best way to exterminate them. Once we realized that, you've got to get a headshot in to get rid of them, and it was easy for us to group together at that point and do what we needed to do to get the job done. And once we all focused on that, and we were able to come out of the initial fear, and we sort of grouped together on it, I think that we were pretty productive and able to rally together as a group and make it happen.
I mean, could you imagine if we had to stay at home for like an entire year because we were too incompetent to handle a situation like this?
I sure don't want to.
Well, it's a good thing that didn't happen.
There were very few parts of the world where this uprising happened, your hometown being one of them. What does this mean to you?
Just that it was a small outbreak more than anything. Because, sure, my hometown was impacted by it, but we were able to keep it under wraps pretty easily.
I guess it just means that, people around me aren't paying enough attention to what's really going on, right? We were targeted. The fact that this wasn't everywhere shows that it wasn't a widespread real issue to begin with. It was able to be kept in a specific location for some purpose. I just don't know fully what that purpose was yet, but I'm going to find out.
Wait, you're telling me that there were zombies in my hometown? I never saw a damn one.
I was pretty worried for my folks, because, I'm not there, and all the travel restrictions going on in Hawaii. So, they're basically fenced in there, and I was pretty worried.
Doesn't really mean that much. I've never left. Lived here my whole life. My wife did, my parents before them. Don't really leave this town that much. I think the one time I left was for a book convention and I hated it so much.
It just means maybe we have more crazy people in my hometown than other hometowns.
It's weird because I only had this job at the time for a few months, so I came to US on a work visa. So it was a few months, and it's like I find out, oh, okay, so the fate decided to just put down a zombie apocalypse right next to me. Missed me a little bit. And then I found out that the same thing happened from where I came from. And it's like somebody's trying to throw giant darts at you and they keep missing. I know it's silly. It's like, oh yes, of course, target this random Russian dude with your zombie plague, but it's how it feels.
I'm just doing fine. Nothing happened to me. I know tons of people, nothing happened to them. I do think some people got sick with this disease that affects the way people think, gives them hallucinations. I think that's probably true. But a state of emergency and the need to protect yourself with gear because wacky people, do wacky things. Anytime there's money to be made, people are going to find a way to make money. And it's just unfortunate the government decided to participate.
A lot of folks came by looking for their cars to get outfitted for this whole zombie apocalypse. And after the whole thing blew over, lo and behold, they wanted a refund. I found that quite rich.
It's tough to see. It really changed and affected my hometown. It will never be the same. My children, who I wanted to raise in this town that I grew up in, obviously now things are different, and they're not going to see some of the things that I wanted them to see growing up and wanted them to be able to have. This will be just a scar for them, and I think for the community. But we can get some good out of this too, which I'm hoping to do, and I'm hoping that we can rebuild and we can make it something new and have this as a distant memory, something that we learned from, and we're able to rally together, and that's a positive experience that we can pull out of what we've been through.
I hope that my hometown successes, God forbid this happen anywhere else. I hope that the way that my hometown and my country handled this crisis will set an example for everybody else.
All I can say is we were unlucky.
Some people thought the zombie uprising wasn't too bad or was too small to affect them. What is your reaction to them?
Thoughts like that are why people got infected originally. Not practicing enough caution or not washing your hands. It will get you a fast track to infection.
Is watching your loved ones come back to life and having to put a bullet in them too small? How much more did people really want?
It was right there and then. There's so many eyewitnesses. I think there's so many eyewitnesses happen all over the world.
All you needed to do was just look outside or read a single news story to realize how big an issue this was. I can't believe there were people who thought it was a hoax. Some even right down to the end, as they were about to be bitten by a zombie. Just doesn't make any sense to me.
Nuts to them. Real people died. And to minimize that in any way is demonstrable and abhorrent at best.
People can be stupid.
Well, we all think that we're invincible, and then as you get older, you realize that you're not anymore. And so I think that those people were just naive to the situation, maybe had never in their lives been put in a situation where they had to make a life or death situation, or they had never been exposed to something cruel in life that can happen. And so they felt that they were invincible and it would not affect them. And I know that there were a lot of those types of people that were affected directly, or their families were affected. And so I think that that's changed a lot of people from this.
I understand, because I felt that way about my hometown before it spread there. So, for them, I'd say, be careful just in case, Better safe than sorry.
Yeah, it wasn't. It didn't affect me at all. Like I said, it didn't bother my life any. None of my friends were affected by it. Maybe it was out there, but it wasn't close enough to me to change myself at all.
Well, I wish they wouldn't call it a zombie uprising, because that's... it's not zombies. Just because somebody's sick doesn't mean they're a zombie, for God's sake. But at least, I'm not surprised. Not everybody's an idiot. There's some smart people out there that recognize this is just a crock. And so, I'm encouraged by that. I wish they didn't even use that crazy zombie term. We should not even use that, because it's putting fuel to the fire. But, there's varying levels of people being awake and aware as to what's going on and how we're being manipulated by the media and by the government.
I was literally on its doorsteps, and I haven't seen, an undead or whatever there in front of me at any point. The mailman came by every day. You could hear gunshots, but honestly, the neighborhood is pretty bad. You can hear them at least once a week, but there was a day where there was just a lot of gunshots, actually, in the middle of the day. Mailman mailman didn't appear that day, but he came back next day and nothing apparently happened. He brought packages. He was just told not to do it that day. No idea what that was about. Internet doesn't tell you much either. Honestly, just got overwhelmed with all this disinformation. Like, yeah, there were people who tried to, like, fake the zombies. They would put on costume and makeups and then try to, like, put the videos of themselves in live leak. It's such a weird time to be. It's like the apocalypse was everywhere, but it was also nowhere. Just seen pickup trucks, sometimes full of people. I could basically see them even taking the guns out once in a while, just driving by, but I also seen the majority of them drive back. Trust me, when you're at home for so long, you get really bored, so you start keeping details on the smallest things. It was like a game. Oh, do these people come back? Do these not? I mean, most of them came back.
Some people outright went directly into danger, walking close to the zombies nearby, or even trying to get infected to prove that it wasn't that bad. What do you think of them?
Well, I think that they were foolish. I mean, why go there when we need the help to exterminate the zombies and to get rid of it? Why go in there and try to get it to prove it's not bad? If it's an experimental thing and something that's controlled that you're trying to do with scientists and the medical community, that's one thing. But if you're going into it to try and prove a point, that's just stupidity.
They're the heroes. I think those are the people that's why this state of emergency, in part, was shut down, because those people did the brave thing. They went out, they were exposing it. I exposed it in my own way because I work in the law profession, so I was able to do research. I know how to do that. These folks had boots on the ground, and they went in and they discovered things, and that's part of the reason that we're now finally on the right course and things are getting back to normal, is because those brave people, those heroes, were able to infiltrate the lie and gather information that the government's suppressing, and the companies that sell all this crazy gear are trying to suppress. But they're the ones that forced things to be brought back to normal because they realized the truth, and they're about to expose the truth. So those are the heroes.
Good. Go for it. Show everybody that this isn't real to begin with. How many of those people actually got infected? How many of those people became zombies? None that I know of. And they didn't need any boots, and they didn't need any arm guards, and they didn't need anything else that wasn't helping them. It just simply didn't happen because it wasn't an issue.
I think that's really stupid, and it's not only harmful for them, but for those who care about them, like friends and family. It's one thing to put yourself in harm's way. It's another to, actively endanger those around you.
Is someone who walks right into a lion's den considered smart? I don't think so. These folks put themselves and everyone around them in danger.
Again, completely idiotic. There is no reason why you have to do something so stupid, especially if you're trying to prove your dumb conspiracy theory that this is all just a hoax. Your job should be trying to keep yourself safe and your family safe.
I think they're the reason this infection lasted longer than it really should have. Why get closer to a threat in an effort to prove it wrong? Why can't we all just try to work together to clean it up?
Who ventures into the unknown? I mean, who ventures into the unknown when danger is around? Who exposes themselves, goes out without a mask when a pandemic is around? You hear what I'm saying?
I'd say they're idiots, frankly. Then again, I'm not much better.
I found out that apparently there is a lot of people who deny it. Oh, it didn't happen. But it's so weird.
Frankly, I was in about the same boat when it was first announced, but still, pretty damn stupid.
Would the government really spend this short amount of time creating a hoax over nothing? People grasping at straws because they don't want to feel bad about what happened.
Yeah, I think there's a lot more people like that than there are others. We don't see us on TV because they don't want to show us on TV. They don't want us to call them out for being liars. They don't want us to point the finger at the lying government, a manipulative government. So, they're not giving us any airtime. They're suppressing us. We put out Twitter feeds, they cut those right down. We post things on Facebook. They'll cut that stuff down because the mass media, the mass hysteria doesn't want the truth to be found out. But the truth is, they can't keep us quiet forever.
I think that's very backwards thinking. I think that people need to check their tinfoil hats a little bit.
For the one part, can't say I blame them. Like, I thought it was not real myself at first. But then, when you realize that it's the real deal, safety first.
Hoax or not, the fact that these people can think for themselves and the fact that they were willing to go out there and find out what was really going on is great. Everybody that just followed along blindly with what people were saying, those are the zombies that we need to be afraid of. Those are the people who can't think for themselves and we can't fix because they're not willing to listen to reason.
I say to them, if you really think the government has this much competency, then you should really take a look at the state of insurance and government-run programs. The government does not have this much coordination or this much... I don't know what the word is, but they sure as hell couldn't pull this off themselves. No matter how big it is.
And then you have entire countries who, like, focus down on it. I'm pretty sure you've heard that there's... I know Russia does it. China apparently too. They call it the American virus. Because, the flesh-eating zombies, they eat everything. Haha, so funny. I mean, it's funny until you're right there. Then it's just surprisingly dull. But also terrifying.
There's always conspiracy theories out there, and people are always going to come up with something, and they're a small group, and they took this and they sort of ran with that. I didn't think that they got too much attention. They tried to make their voices heard with little protests and things like that, but it really didn't go anywhere. We're used to that kind, it happens a lot.
Well, I'm glad that there were no major public figures who were spreading that conspiracy theory in order to make people think it was a mainstream idea.
As long as they're still taking the mandated precautions, I don't particularly care what people think, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I've spoken with my family over, Contacti and such on their video client, and I would hear news in the background, and they would call it, the American virus, and apparently Texas got eaten entirely, and, fun fact, it wasn't. Not much of it to be eaten, or too much, rather. And kept up with my coworkers, through other, video meetings and such. And as I said, we had some people who never stayed at home, went to the store every day, and didn't see anything, didn't have undead clawing at their faces.
So the government began looking at reports that these infected were mostly trying to bite people through the arms and ankles, and that was what led to them encouraging people to buy boots and arm guards. What was your reaction to this?
It's funny how that works, right? So, you're from the United States Senator. I'm not going to mention any names, congressman, high up, very high up, at all levels of the government, and you happen to own stock in companies that make equipment that can protect certain areas of the body. And so what do? You hear about this new disease, this virus that causes mental hallucinations, and you start telling people, well, this is what happens if you get the disease. You start biting. People get the disease and they do what they're told to do. They do what is expected to them because they're not quite thinking straight, right? So people would never even be doing this if they weren't told that when you get this disease, what you're supposed to do is bite people. The government created the environment, they created the situation. They've made a ton of money off of it, unfortunately, but thank God they've been found out, and it's ending. It's ending now due to the heroes that are out there that would not listen to the craziness.
I am an auto technician. You think I'd repair a car without my jack? No, sir. Protective gear makes sense. It's what you do.
Went and got some as soon as I could. Think I had a ratty old pair of boots lying around and arm guards, duct tape.
I actually really like them. My SO got me a pair that I was like I liked it so much I actually wear it around the house.
I did exactly what they suggested. I tried as hard as I could to find boots and arm guards. At least at first, the store shelves were pretty empty, so I kind of had to improvise a little bit. I used a blanket to cover my neck, and I was able to find some cardboard from some old boxes that I recently had, when ordering something to protect my ankles. Later on, eventually, as people started to get more into a routine, better equipment came back, was more readily available in the stores. So I was able to order some online, and now I have a much more proper set of safety equipment. But yeah, I acted immediately as soon as the experts say that that's the way to keep yourself safe and to keep each other safe. Of course, I followed those rules.
I suppose it was just like any other outbreak. Wear your masks and wash your hands. Wear your arm and leg guards. It's all the little things you do to keep yourself safe from infection.
Again, there was just this weird thing where a lot of people would just drive in the back of, would drive a whole bunch of people in the back of pickup trucks. And I did notice they were wearing, hockey armor, I think. I couldn't tell from afar. I guess it was a thing that people did. And eventually they stopped coming in and out over time. That's, eventually when I found out that it was over. In fact, I guess I found out it was over from those people before it was, all clear was sounded by the government agencies.
I mean, what a discovery that was. It was very easy then for us to just buy arm guards like this that we were able to put on and protect our officers. And with this and with the ankle guards, to be able to go out into the community and really do something about this situation made it so much easier than having to control it in a situation where you're wearing full armor or hiding from the situation and coming out to try and deal with it in a sneaky way. We were able to walk out with these and our ankle guards and just deal with it, and it just really allowed us to do a lot more that much quicker.
What was your reaction to this?
It was ridiculous. Just because if they were real, if they're biting arms and ankles and then suddenly those get covered up by pitiful, weak pieces of equipment anyways, they'll just move on somewhere else. I'm not wrapping myself in a full suit of armor to protect against something that wasn't a threat to me to begin with. So the arm guards they gave us were too thin, and there was no way it was going to stop anything anyways. The boots were ridiculous and too big, and if there was an issue, you're not running away from these zombies wearing massively huge boots like that. So there was no point in it.
What do you think of the people who found this gear unnecessary and silly?
Those are a bunch of morons who think they know better. You wear your protective gear. You go on a job site, you wear your hard hat. Simple as that.
Better off without them, I'd say.
Well, I just think that they're just looking for trouble, because if they think that that this gear is not going to protect them or us, then they're just not they're not educated. They really don't know what's going on. They don't understand, and they just really need to get educated and have an open mind with it, because it protects others and it protects them. And so for them to not move forward with that is just silly.
I guess it would have been fine if they were only putting themselves in danger, but, the more people who get infected, the more chance there are of other people getting infected. I just wish that more people would have taken this seriously.
I think that we have them in our morgue right now.
It's just like the people who thought the whole thing was a hoax. I don't understand that thought process. Why do you think that you know more than someone who dedicates their life and career to studying this stuff?
I mean, if there's people that are out there biting you, they're not zombies. Again, they're people that have an illness that affects various lobes of their frontal cortex and their meninges in the back of their head, and it causes them to be susceptible to suggestion, to act oddly. And so, they've been told that if you get sick, you bite people, so they bite people. And a human bite can be dangerous, but the issue is not that. The issue is that this situation has been very cleverly created, manipulated, and brought to come to pass in the first place. It never should have happened.
I agree. All this gear was absolutely unnecessary and silly. I know plenty of people who were walking near people that they thought were zombies and never got it, and they didn't have any of this gear on. So that right there shows that they didn't. It's unnecessary anyways.
I don't know. I hope that majority of them are now, have not ended up walking awkwardly and try to, claw at their friends.
We can't force people to wear things. You can put it out, you can recommend it, you can say that this is what we want you to do, you can mandate it. But it's up to the individual person to actually wear that protection. And, they learn the hard way. And it's sad. People don't remember that there's more than just them involved. It's their families also. And so what they do or don't do with themselves affects their family and their loved ones that then have to deal with that after, when they're not taking the proper precautions that are needed, and then something happens to them, and who's affected? Of course they're affected, but so is the family, and the family has to deal with it, and people forget that part of the equation.
A lot like the previous answer, as long as they're still wearing it, I don't really care what they think of it.
And if they don't wear it?
Well, I think that's a problem, not just for them, but again, those around them, because if they're bit, they're a hazard to everyone.
I don't like the government. I feel like they've gotten a bit too big. But at the end of the day, we the people are the government. Better than being under any tyranny. I want to say to the folks out there who are skeptical, get off your high horse and come down to Dresden Auto. Thank you.
I didn't have a definite plan at first. It sort of hit. And you sort of jog from one thing to another because you don't really know what the answer is immediately. It's not like, oh, we have the flu, and so this is what we're going to do with that. This is an unknown. And so you go from one extreme to the other, and we're learning about this as we go. And so we didn't know about these zombies because all that we had from the past was what we've seen on TV and what we imagined it to be. And then all of a sudden it's here, and it's not a movie anymore. It's real. And so from that, you really have to dig into reality, and you can't rely on what you've seen in the movies because that's not always true. And so the embarrassment was a lot of, I guess, not having a plan, a solid plan in place from the beginning. It was trying one thing, maybe that doesn't work, so you try another thing. Having to hear from the community that they figured out first that it took a headshot to kill the zombies and not a body shot, because we're used to trying to just, take someone down and not necessarily kill them. But with the zombies, it had to be a headshot, and we didn't know that. I received a phone call from a civilian about that who had done, a little bit of investigating on their own. And so that's something that we should have known and didn't. And so there was a lot of things that went wrong through it, but I think in the end, it turned out okay. You just sort of hope that people forget about the things that went wrong as you're trying to figure them out, and they look at the end result and that's what matters.
I went looking as long as I could. Never saw hide nor hair of them. I think I heard one lady scream in her house. It was a cat robber. Didn't even shoot him. He shot me first. I kept searching for maybe a day or two, most maybe a work week, looking, trying, hoping for something. It was finally my chance to be the hero, and it just was a waste of my time.
I won't lie, I live in a rather bad neighborhood, so armed civilians would be kind of a day-to-day occurrence. So, as I said, there were gunshots every other week. So, it was just weird that there were so many. And nothing on the news, nothing on the internet, just a bunch of gunshots. Even Mailman doesn't know. No, I got to know Mailman quite too much. Name's Steve. God, we spoke way too much about sports. I don't even care about sports that much. Being in isolation really makes you talkative.
Several thousand down the drain with those guns at the very least.
Every time I turn the TV on and I see some crazy person talking about zombies, I hear of one of the truth tellers being suppressed or being censored. Some of the work that I've tried to publish has not been accepted. It's been rejected outright because they don't want the truth to get out there. All of these moments stand out very clearly in my mind as a really frightening example of what our country, some people of our great country, not all, are willing to do to control the masses and to gain power and make money. The whole thing is very sad and scary to me that people are willing to put forth lies like this and manipulate people for their own self-interest.
There's nothing like the moment when everything happens, when everything is in motion and you're digesting it all, when it's sinking it all in. Once I started panicking, I didn't know what ground I was standing on. But then once I boarded up, I'm like, I guess that's when I find myself able to ask questions. What am I gonna do?
Our university had a major campus shutdown. Classes were run online as much as possible. Anytime someone had to come to campus to perform an experiment in a lab, as I often had to do, we had to get tested, at least once a week to make sure that we weren't infected. Those are all fairly commonplace regulations. Eventually, the students started to get a little too obsessed with the sort of fantasy aspect of a zombie apocalypse, and zombie movies and zombie-themed parties were everywhere. It was sort of a disaster, and the university took a bit of an extreme step. They actually banned zombie movies and zombie-related parties on campus and, throughout the campus community. Not sure I agreed with that decision, but I kind of understand where it came from. I don't really go to parties much, thankfully. The only one I can really think of is one zombie party where a bunch of freshmen met up in order to purposefully get themselves infected by the zombie virus so that other people wouldn't be in danger. I'm not really sure what their thought process was there.
You said something earlier about trying to get to the bottom of what this was really about. How are you going to do that?
Well, I think I'm going to use my platform of writing and being able to interview people and talk and spread the word about what I find. It starts with asking questions and talking to people who aren't or haven't been brainwashed into this whole thing and hear different perspectives. There were too many people that were just willing to blindly believe that this was a real thing without having experienced it. And seeing is believing. And I want to talk to people who actually saw things, and I bet that there are more people who didn't see things and were largely unaffected by this to begin with. So I need to get that word out so that everybody understands that just giving yourself over completely to any group of people is not the way to go. So whether or not this was like fully made up or just partially made up for some ulterior motive, I don't know, but I'm going to start asking questions to find out.
I believe that the news was a little incendiary with how they covered it, causing unnecessary panic. We have an influx of people showing up with a cough or a sniffle, believing that they had been infected, when it's just their allergies kicking in.
That happened a lot at your hospital?
More than you can imagine. We've had a packed ER for the last month and a half.
Just wish I could go back to see my family. It's been so long. It's been a few months now, and the flight restrictions are still everywhere. I had no way to get an approval. I mean, I'm glad they're safe as far as I know, but at the same time, I don't even know what. There's so much I don't even know what to believe sometimes, even after all this.
I don't think that any of us saw this coming. And I think that the hardest thing is everyone's dealing with it differently. You've got people of all different ages. You've got the elderly who felt that they've already been through everything that they could have possibly been through in their lives. And now all of a sudden this. And how do we deal with that? And they're very vulnerable because they don't have the agility that the others of us do to be able to deal with the situation. And so they're more vulnerable. And now all of a sudden, after all they've been through, this is what's going to get them. And then you've got the middle-aged people who have families, who are worried about their maybe teenage children or 20-somethings that are out on their own, wondering about how their safety is and how do they protect them. And then the younger population, you know, how do the children deal with this? What do they see? And it's just been very different. Everyone's handled it very differently. Everyone has different feelings on it. And I just really hope that it's something that now that we're through with it, that it never happens again.
I was completely isolated from the world during this incident. I'm surprised I got by with what little food I had when I was boarded up.
I'm glad it's over, and I'm glad that we can go back to our lives again. Hopefully next time there's a major public health crisis, people will learn to take it seriously, to listen to experts, and to just sort of take care of each other.
The thing that was most shocking for me, that stands out in my mind from all of this, is how ignorant people can be, and how they're willing to just believe whatever gets packaged for them and given to them. Fear is powerful, and people in power know that fear is our most powerful emotion, so if they can find something to make you afraid, they're going to do it and use it to their advantage.
Do you have anything to say to the people who believe that you're the ones who don't know anything and you're just making stuff up?
Yeah. Do what the heroes have done and walk into those restricted zones and find the truth. They don't want you going in there because they don't want you to know the truth. Go in, find out the truth. That's what you should do. Don't believe what you're fed.
Any final thoughts or anything?
No. I hope it, what's a quote? I guess we'll just have to wait with a pint and wait for it to blow over.
Wear your gloves, wear your masks, wear your protection, and this will all come to an end much quicker.
Zombies come and give me a bite. Let's see how it goes.
Hi, Mom.
Diary of August Drew, June 29th. Earlier today, I overheard a rather heated discussion between two people as I was buying my groceries. From what I could gather, it was over the zombie uprising, which more and more feels like just a bad dream now. To one of those people, it was little more than that. A small scare that the media and businesses exploited for their own benefit, selling snake oil solutions and fearful prophesying on TV to whoever would fall for it. Such a notion was so banal and ignorant that it took all my willpower to continue going on about my day and not butt in with my own retorts. I know I was not above my own skepticism at first, but how much can you really ignore when there is overwhelming evidence? How many people can you believe to be lying before you ponder if you might be the only one peddling falsehoods? Thankfully, the minority of people who do not treat this with the seriousness it deserves is shrinking even further, which is perhaps the biggest mercy in all of this. I like to think of myself as a creative man, and I can easily imagine a timeline in which our government was not so diligent and our people not so wise. But frankly, I don't think I want to.